It's time for Three Things with JR. I am JR. We are back. It is episode number 28. Yes, sir. 28. Not really a round number or anything major to celebrate, just 28. And if you listened last week, I mentioned a couple things. I want to give you some follow-up on those things. One, I asked for guests and nobody volunteered. Nobody reached out. So I had to do the reaching out. I was at a comedy open mic here in Charlottesville on Wednesday night at the Ix Art Park. By the way, there's another one this coming Wednesday night at the Ix Art Park. Show starts at 8:30, 15 comics doing open mic comedy. I'll be hosting the show. If you are a comic and want to be on it, you should definitely sign up. And if you're just a person that wants to go see some comedy, you should show up as well. It's free. There's drinks available. There's a bar. And it's a pretty cool atmosphere. And you get to hang out outside, totally safe and hilarious. So the next guest, the guest on today's show, I have a guest. I interviewed somebody, recorded it, and I'm going to play it for you because we had an awesome conversation. He is a comic from the Hampton Roads area, the 757 part of Virginia. And he and several others drove up from Hampton Roads all the way to Charlottesville to do 5 minutes of comedy at an open mic outside last Wednesday at the Ix Art Park. That's how dedicated to comedy these guys are. I have booked Nick Deez, my guest on today's show, a couple times at Pro Renata Brewery. He is great. He's hilarious. And what we find out in this interview is some pretty cool stuff. He's the same age as my stepson, Chester. He's been doing comedy for not as long as me, but for a much higher percentage of his life than I have been doing it for my life. And we talk about that. We break down some jokes, and we talk about being stepdads, and we talk a lot about movies and music, and Pee Wee Herman getting caught jerking off in a movie theater. All of that's to come in my interview with Nick Deez here in a few minutes. So you are in for a treat. If you're listening to this show like you listen to WTF, Mark Maron's podcast, you can skip ahead about a minute or two, and we'll get right into the things, and we'll be talking to Nick Deez. Or you could sit in here and listen to me update you on a couple things. One, I was thinking that when I was recording and putting together the episode last week, when I say, here comes a drum solo, it's not technically always a drum solo that you're hearing. I have recorded myself playing drum solos downstairs in my basement, but sometimes I just play a section of a song that my band Big has performed and that we have recorded, and it's not always a drum solo, technically speaking. Sometimes there's just a cool drum riff or something, a part of the song that I like. It might not even be featuring the drums much, if at all. So when I say that, it's just the term I'm using because I'm a drummer, so I'm going to say that. And sometimes it's a solo, and sometimes it's just a drum fill from a song, or it might be me playing my drums in my basement. It might be a cut from a recording. My band Big is going into the studio this coming Sunday to record 2 new songs. One song that we've recorded before, but we've got a new version of it. We've amped it up a little bit, added some electricity to it, and a full drum set instead of just the cajon. And we're going to record People in a whole new way this coming Sunday. And we've got a whole new song called Brand New Day. I've actually played cuts from that song on this show, and we're going to record it finally in a real studio. And we can't wait for you guys to hear that. I can't wait to play it on this podcast. So pretty excited about that. And lastly, last week I mentioned that I was looking for a stroller for my discs. My disc golf bag needs a thing with wheels on it so that I don't have to carry it. I play disc golf at a old ball golf course in Gordonsville, Virginia, and it's a long walk, a lot of walking, a lot of carrying the bag. I got 25, 30 discs in there, and it gets heavy, and you get fatigued, and you don't throw discs as good if you have to carry the bag. So I bought a stroller. Thank you, Craigslist. It was easy. Found a couple options on Craigslist, reached out, found one that was still available, went and saw it, $50, done. A typical disc golf cart, an official one, you're going to run you $200, $300, $400. This one is perfect, and it's one of those jogging strollers with big wheels, inflated tires, and I tested it out on Sunday out there in Gordonsville, and it's perfect. So in case anybody was wondering, nobody bothered to hit me up and let me know they had a stroller for sale. And it turns out my daughter's strollers that she uses for my granddaughter are definitely not for sale. They're still in use. So there's that. So thanks, Craigslist, for coming through yet again. I have sold and bought stuff on Craigslist multiple times, never had a bad experience. I've never done the eBay thing. I've never done the Facebook Marketplace thing, but Craigslist, that's my jam. All right, let's get into my interview with Nick Deez. I will say that we had some audio issues. At least I did. Nick didn't have any audio issues. They were all on my end. My laptop's battery was dying, and if I had it plugged in, it was making this weird crackling sound, and there wasn't much I could do about it. And it kind of gets better throughout the recording, but you're just going to have to kind of put up with that. It was either that or not put out an episode this week, and I figured maybe a little bit of weird audio would be better than no audio at all. So without further ado, let's get into, maybe a little further ado. I do want to tell you that Nick has 2 podcasts of his own that you should know about. You can find them where podcasts are found. One of them is called Comedy Build-Up and Breakdowns. It's where he and a buddy basically talk jokes, kind of like we do a little bit here in this interview. And his more personal podcast is called Broken Boys Podcast. I found him on Spotify. I'm sure if you go searching, you can find him there too. Here we go. Yeah, I'm using a Focusrite interface, and I just got this mic, which is like a $400 broadcast mic from Electro Voice, the RE320.
It looks like a lightsaber hilt from here.
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
the angle that I can see it, I'm like, it definitely looks like a Sith lightsaber. That's right. I'm a dork.
It's rather intimidating.
Yeah, it does look a little legit.
It's massive. So let's start with like you, because I don't think anybody in my audience, unless some of the comedians that we both know are going to listen, I don't think anybody in my audience is going to know who you are. So we should start by introducing you. So here's the big question. Who is Nick Deez?
Ooh, 31-year-old stepdad. There we go. That is the enigma with which I could easily describe who I am. Yeah, I mean that's I joke around, but that's pretty much what I am and what I do at this point. Fucking living the dad life. There's not a whole lot going on for comedy right now, so like trying to get whatever live shows in that I can, and then dude just been spending a bunch of time with my kid, which is killer.
That's awesome. The fact that you first think of yourself as a stepdad and whatever it is you are into personally comes next, that's pretty cool. So how old is your stepkid?
He actually just turned 6 in May. Yeah, my son turned 6 in May. So it's just it's weird because like, so his birthday happened, I mean, in the middle of, a global pandemic. So we kind of had to explain to a 6-year-old, like, hey, man, we can only have, like, direct family members come over and hang out for your birthday. But we're going to have to do, like, a rain check birthday party when everything opens back up. And he was like, okay. So I still get cake and I still get presents. We're like, yeah, of course. He goes, all right, well, that's fine. Which is it's pretty dope because he was, like, super chill about it. He's like, as long as you're not taking away my presents or my cake, and I could care less. It was dope because we had a full-on taco bar. So we had like 3 different types of tacos and like a bunch of different tortillas and shit for his birthday. It was pretty killer.
Nice. That's awesome. So the important part of the party still happened. It just wasn't with all.
Oh yeah, 100%. The part that for him mattered was what actually happened. And it was cool because so his I mean, it was me and his mom obviously, but like his grandmother came, and then his actual, like, his real dad showed up and shit. And we had a couple other people over. So it was pretty cool. It was a lot of fun.
What is it 6-year-olds want for their birthday these days?
Dude, fucking.
I have no idea.
Transformers and Star Wars were like the biggest. That's like the 2 big things that he really cares about, which is dope because I'm like, I know what those are. And any time that I talk to him, and he like asked me if I know about those things, I'm like, oh yeah, 100%. Like I know all about comic books and fucking toys and cartoons and stuff. So he's he's super excited every time. I'm like, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Kids have been wanting Star Wars and Transformers, I think, my entire life.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a bit older than you. I'm 46. I saw the first Star Wars in the movie theater, and I've
That
seen
rules.
everyone since in the movie theater. So Star Wars action figures, and then of course when Transformers hit the scene, yeah. So to hear you say that that's still what kids want for their birthday, that's fucking cool.
Dude, it's crazy, man, because like you think about it, and it's one of those like all it takes is one good idea. Like if you have a good idea for something and it hits and it from jump is like a really good idea and it's something original that people haven't seen or heard of before, like you can it like those two things alone, that and like comic books, like that's like the holy trinity of things that can be milked as far as like toys for boys. It's like for Barbie, I feel like it's, I mean, for girls, I feel like it's Barbie, like My Little Pony, and Princess, whatever. Like any of that shit, those are like the three for each of them. Because that's all stuff that I feel is timeless. Like when it came out to now, that shit's not going away at all by any means.
Yep. Hey, earlier when I called you or you mentioned it was your stepkid, and I got to thinking, I'm also a stepdad.
Fuck yeah.
My stepson happens to be 30 in the military, stationed overseas with a wife and kids, right? So I've been his stepdad basically since he was 4.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so what it got me wondering from one stepdad to another, like I've always struggled with, I can never really, like, I just can't say I'm his dad because his biological father is kind of still on the scene, right? And he's a good guy. I like the guy. So I don't have any ill will towards him. He's still a great dad. He was involved in his kid's life. So I think of him as my son, but I can't really like call him that because it's not accurate, I guess. And it just feels weird. And I kind of wish I could, but it's almost like in reverence to his dad, I don't. So what's that dynamic like for you?
It's 50-50, honestly. I mean, like I'll say that he's my stepson, but like realistically, like, dude, he's 6 now, and his mom and I got together when he was 3, and from basically like when her and I got together, within like a few months, I think it was like maybe 6 months, I'd moved down here. So like I moved from Richmond back to Hampton Roads to come live with them because my lease was up, and it was just easier to move down here than it was to drive 2 hours back and forth every time either of us would go visit the other. So I was like, dude, screw it. I'll just come down there. And yeah, I mean, like ever since then, it's really just been, I've been around him every single day for the last 3 years.
So in your brain, you are his dad.
Oh yeah. I mean, realistically to me, it's like 100%. When I talk to people, I'm like, no, that's my kid. Like, that's my kid.
Yeah.
Cause all last week. So technically all this week, I've been on vacation. So like Monday through Friday, I took him to school every single day. I got him ready for school. I packed his lunches. I picked him up from school. I took him to jujitsu. Like I did everything with him all this week. So it's like, as far as like time invested, I'm like, yeah, that's my kid for sure. 100%. Yeah. I put in the work.
Good for you, man. So how does that life, maybe in normal circumstances, family life, how does that affect your comedy?
Oh man, it's great. Cause there is that dichotomy of it as far as like, for him, he's so young that he understands that like he has a dad, but then he also has 2 dads. So like I left to go to the store earlier and my girlfriend told me that he was like stomping around and he was like, where did my dad go? Where did my dad go? So it's cool. Like he's at the point now where he'll call me dad, but I have jokes about it. Cause I have a joke in particular where in the joke, and it actually happened, is like he came home from his real dad's house and he kept calling me dad. And I was like, hey, but then he would correct himself. So he'd be like, hey dad. Oh, sorry, Nicholas. And I was like, dude, like, that's all right, man. Like, if you want to call me dad, you can call me dad. Like, that's okay. And he was just like, nah, that's all right. So it was like, it's the funny of it to me there is like, he understands that he has 2 dads and it's okay. but it like at the same time is being around this as a normal day to day when the time comes where like if his dad ends up with somebody long term, you know, similar situation, it wouldn't be foreign to him to have two of each. You know, it wouldn't be
Right.
like weird to him to go, oh, well, I have two dads, but I can't have two moms. You know what I mean? Like there's that element of it to him. But as far as like how it affects my comedy with the quarantine, like since the quarantine, the pandemic and all that shit happened, with me being at home with him as often as I have been, because I mean, we're just coming out of summer. So like he's just now going back to school. So I've been around him so much that I honestly think that I came up with like 10 to 15 minutes worth of stuff just about him and about being a parent and just him and I, like how we interact with each other. Cause it's always funny because my mom will tell me like if she didn't know that he wasn't my kid, she would just assume that he was actually like my flesh and blood, because that's how similar he and I are to one another, which is great. Like it makes me feel good because characteristically, like he and I have such similar personalities that it's like, fuck yeah, dude, this rules.
I'm the same way with my stepson. He says and does things that I would say and do, even well into, you know, he's in his 30s now, and I see and hear myself in him so much that it makes me so happy to know that I've helped, you know, shape a person, even though I didn't biologically create this person. That person is who they are, and they're wonderful, and it's partly because of me. So that's pretty great.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It's like I didn't make him, but I helped make who he is. As far, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't contribute to him being born, but I definitely can say that I contributed to who he is as a person, or like who he's becoming and the personality that he's developing. I can genuinely say like, oh yeah, I have a thumbprint on that, which is killer. I mean, it's a great feeling, 100%.
Well, good for you, man. How long have you actually been doing comedy?
I started February 4th of 2018, Super Bowl Sunday. And
so wait, 2 years, 2.5 years?
Yeah. It'll be 3 years this February.
And how did you get into it? Had you been thinking you wanted to be a comedian for years and finally did it, or what? Yeah.
My whole, like, since I was probably his age or younger, I've always loved comedy. And that was like one of the things that as a kid, my parents and I really, like, that was where the divide crossed. Like I was able to watch comedy. Like I was way younger than I should have been watching George Carlin and Richard Pryor and old Eddie Murphy and Robin Williams and shit like that. Cause I was born in 89, almost, 1990. So it's like I was coming out of the tail end, or I was coming into the picture at the tail end of the 80s run, where everybody started early 90s and shit like that. So then as I got a little bit older, I really feel like I had the luxury of coming up when I would consider SNL probably in one of its most prolific eras. Is like, because when I was old enough to start watching that stuff with my parents, it was Chris Farley, Kevin Nealon, Chris Rock, Adam Sandler, David Spade. Like it was all those people that realistically, honestly, I can genuinely say that each of those people from that had such a big impact on like my personality and my sense of humor, that as I got older, the older I got, the more I was like, man, this is what I want to do. Like I always was like, I want to be funny. I want to be like a funny actor, or I want to be in funny movies. Or like for years, I was convinced that one day I would do like voiceover work for cartoons and shit like that, or I would do something in that realm. And I'd always wanted to do stand up. And a buddy of mine, a comic from Richmond, my buddy Brian Williams, started a couple months before I did. And I think he started probably like 2017, like near the tail end.
Yeah.
And I saw him start posting stuff as far as like little clips of him at places doing open mics and shit. And it threw me off because it brought it from this like grand scale of like, holy shit, Hollywood. And it brought it right into like my little petri dish, as far as like, it took it out of another like world and brought it right into my backyard. And I was like, dude, how did you do that? Like, how did you figure that out? How'd you find out that was a thing? Like, where did you figure that out? And it was so like, it was like I found fire. Like, as soon as I realized that you could do that on a local level, I was just like, holy shit, I have to do it. And I think I spent all of December. I wrote a bunch all through December of 2017. And then I wrote all through January of 2018.
Yeah.
So I had 2 months worth of me just constantly writing jokes. And I was just writing shit constantly for 2 months. And I wrote a whole bunch of shit. I probably wrote granted, most of it was probably dog shit, but I wrote at least probably like 20 to 30 minutes worth of material collective in that 2 month window. And like my New Year's resolution, as corny as it is, I was like, my resolution for 2018 was that I was going to do stand-up. And I did it. February 4th was the first time I did it. And immediately after that, it was like I was hooked on heroin. I just couldn't stop.
Yeah, that's awesome. You did it. I'm realizing a couple things. One, your first day of your first gig was on my dad's birthday. And two,
Yeah.
you're like the exact same age as my stepson. I'm just now realizing that.
Oh, really?
We're both born in 89.
I just turned 31. Actually, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he turned 31 back in January, so he's actually older than you.
Fuck yeah, just by a little.
Just a little bit. So do you still do any of
you dad?
You can do that. You wouldn't be the first younger comedian to call me dad. That's usually how I get introduced. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, the next comedian's my dad. Here he comes, JR.
There you
so
go.
Do you still do any of those jokes that you first wrote before your first time on stage?
I tell you what, I have maybe not I can almost run through the jokes that I did that first night. It's like in my head, I still remember enough of what I did. Cause I think I did my first time ever, I did like 8 minutes. So it was like 8 minutes at my very first time on stage, as far as like doing comedy goes.
That's
my
a
first
lot
time doing comedy on stage. Oh yeah. Well, it was crazy. So the mic that I went to is this place called Brewers Cafe in Richmond, run by a really good dude, Remo Mills. But I went up, but he had this like little like backyard like church style PA. It was this tiny little box with a microphone that was like hooked up directly to the box. And it was so weird to me because I used to do music before I did comedy. So like it was weird to me how it sounded. So at a certain point, and there was maybe like 10, 15 people in the room total. So at a certain point, I just stopped using the mic and just talked to everyone normally. Because I was like, this mic sounds weird. It was like crackly and sounded funny. So I was like, fuck it, I'm going to just talk to everybody. And I did the whole 8 minutes. Because initially, like, I wasn't going to go up because I was just watching. And it was like right near the end of the show. I went up last at this open mic. Because I was just like, I walked up to him. I was like, hey, man, like, is that offer still available? Like, I want to just do it. Like, I don't want to just sit and watch. I watched a few people and I was like, man, fuck it. Just do it. Like, I just had to do it. But as far as those jokes go, I think probably the one joke that I do now still that I think is the oldest joke that I think came within my first month or so of actually doing stand-up. I haven't. So my dad passed away a few years ago, and it happened like right before I started doing stand-up, probably like a year or so before. What, he passed away? I think it was 2016, so it'll be almost 4 years now since my dad passed away. So I wrote a joke about how my dad passed away, and I know the joke. I still do it, but it's like. So my dad passed away recently, and I decided I was going to hire a medium to help me contact him, but I already have buyer's remorse because I realized how possessive he is. And that's how I initially wrote the joke, and that was it. That was the joke. It was almost like in a one-liner kind of format. But as I kept doing it, I added more to it. So it went from that to I do that part, and it's like, but it's okay because these girls that I work with keep talking to me about sugar daddies. So I think I'm just going to get one of those instead, because I don't know if you guys can tell by looking at me. I have a huge sweet tooth, and I could definitely use a strong male figure to teach me how to catch. And then I pause, and I pause. I look at the room, and I go, and then I always do this thing. Like, if you ever see me do the joke, you know that, like, it's this weird, like, it's not even like an act out, but it's like a weird little, like, cue or signal, like I'm telling somebody to steal third base. But I'll pull up the back of my pants when I go, that joke is such a pain in the ass to tell. And I'll, like, adjust my pants to, like, give that, oh, he's talking about, a dude, fucking him in the ass.
Right.
But so that was, like, where the joke started. So it started that first chunk, and then I got the second part from just doing it more. But then I did the joke, and I hadn't put the joke out yet. So I did the joke, and I got a really strong recording of the joke. It was a video of it. But I was doing the joke one night, and I ended up just riffing on this lady, because as soon as I said the words sugar daddy, this lady in the front row goes, "Oh, me too." So then, like, in a room full of people, she was like, "Oh, me too." And then, like, everybody starts cheering and clapping and laughing for the lady. And I, like, what I ended up doing, so I had that happen, and what I said to the lady is, I was like, "Ma'am, I got to be honest with you. As a white guy, that is the first and only time I've ever heard a woman excited to yell the words 'me too.'" And, like, it crushed in the room. It fucking, like, it got, like, a really good response. And it was just something quick off the top that I was like, all right, well, cool, I'm going to use that too. So then what started as just, like, a little one-liner turned into, like, a multiple punch kind of joke. So it like built itself out a little bit the more I did it. But there was, like, a few jokes from that first set that I know I still remember. And I've thought about going back to try some of them, but it's like, oh man, it's so brutal. It's so brutal to look back and go, yeah, this is where you started. Like, this is what I thought was stage ready. I'm like, oh my God.
Did you record your first performance?
So not the first one. The first night, no. But I did that first night at Brewers. And then the very next night, I did another show. Then I had, like, a handful of friends show up, and they came and hung out and watched me do stand-up at this place in Richmond. And somebody recorded that one for me. So I have not the very first time that I did stand-up, but I have the second time I did stand-up, and it's the exact same jokes.
When I did my first gig, or my first open mic, first time on stage as a comic, nobody I knew even knew that it was going to happen. I didn't want anybody I knew to be there. It just so happened my girlfriend had a thing out of town that time. I'm like, oh, bummer. But I did not want her there, my daughter, my family, my friends, my coworkers, nobody to see me do this the first time. Because I had no idea if it was going to work out. And I started just like 6 months before you. That's how much longer I've been doing this. So so it was very late in life, and I did record that first one, and I was happy with how it went. I did throw it up on Facebook, and I told everybody afterwards, because it actually went okay. But I don't do any of that old material, so I only remember, like, one of the jokes, and it wasn't even great. But yeah,
what's the
you're
joke you remember?
Totally different. It was actually not bad for a first timer, because it did have a callback in it. When I first got up, one of the first things I know, right?
Guys, I'm going to bring up your next comic. Very funny guy. Please give it up for JR. You know I'm funny. I've never done this before. I have to go to the bathroom, actually. Hopefully I can make it through this, but when people say they gotta go to the bathroom, and they say something like, I gotta go to the bathroom, but I'll be right back. Probably means they're just going number one, right? But if they're like me, they'll say something like, hey, I gotta go to the bathroom. I could be a minute. It's probably number 2. Shit's going down, right? All right, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much. I really do have to go to the bathroom. I could be a minute. Guys, keep it going. I took a gamble. I called him funny, but it was his first time. Proved me right. Very cool.
It was a callback implying
Right.
that I had to go take a shit. It was a stupid joke, but I was proud of how I did it. Now I have to go back and watch that to see how I
See, I
actually
had
did it, 'cause I thought I remembered it, but
there's
apparently
one
I
joke
don't.
offhand that I know for a fact I'm probably gonna butcher it, but I remember from that set was so the joke was like I started writing my autobiography recently, and I got my name written down and realized that my life sucks. So I just decided that I was going to steal somebody else's life instead. So I was like, I don't know if you guys know this about me, but when I was a kid, my parents were murdered in an alley. Yeah, it kind of messed me up pretty bad. Actually, after this, I have to go jump off a building. And then I was like, it's not what you think. It was like, it's not what you think. I'm not going to go fight crime or anything. I'm just really sad. I would go from that joke, and then the joke after that was basically about it was like, no, I'm just really sad. Like I tried to donate sperm recently. Yeah, keyword there is tried. I didn't know that they could turn you down from donating sperm, but they can do that. They took one look at me as soon as I walked in the door, and they were like, nah, we're good. And that was the joke that I had after that. That was pretty much it. But that's like the level of I think this is good. This is where I'm going to start, and this is what I'm going to start with. I was like, yeah, 8 minutes of that shit. Like, cool, thanks.
The parents dying in the alley joke is actually kind of clever because you lead me down the path mentally as the audience member of thinking, oh, you're going the Batman route, and then you twist it up on me. And I mean, it's fairly simple, but it worked.
Yeah, I mean, the thing was like, none of the shit that I did that first night was good enough that I was like, oh man, like I killed it. You know what I mean? Like it was decent enough that I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do this again tomorrow. And then just kept doing it. Cause like there was another joke in that set that I had about like how my parents, like my mom and my stepdad are Jehovah's Witnesses. And I would say like, oh, my parents are Jehovah's Witnesses. And then I would just go, oh yeah, sorry in advance for anybody here if they've knocked on your door. And then there was like a joke after that I've tried rewriting that joke multiple times. But yeah, like I had a few things in there about that. And then there's like one joke in there now that I'm thinking about it that I'm like, damn, I might actually go back and try and make that joke work again. But it was like the joke was that I went on a blind date with someone that was actually blind. So it's like I went on a blind date recently. And by that, I mean she was actually blind. But it was like, but she's not from around here. So like I just kept showing her around to all the places that I like to go to. And I was like, all right, no peeking. And she'd go, all right, I'm still blind. And I was like, oh, shit, sorry. But it's like, I thought it was going really well until we got back to my place. We had sex. And then afterwards, she looked at me, kind of. She looked at me and she was like, well, that's funny. And I'm like, well, what's funny? And she goes, you didn't sound Asian. I'm like, ah, man.
Oh.
I'm like, you can't see this, but you just broke my heart. But yeah, that's one joke out of that whole thing that I'm like, I might be able to try and like punch that up and then use it. I don't know. I feel weird trying to rehash shit that I'm like, I walked away from this for a reason, but I'm like, some of it, when you think about some of the stuff, you're like, maybe the jokes didn't work as well as they could have, because it's like, when I wrote shit then, I was so afraid of silence. So I didn't pause for anything. So like you just run through like start to finish. You don't give anything room to breathe. So you're like, I can't even tell if the jokes are good or bad. It's just that you're walking over punchline after punchline after punchline. And you're literally just like hitting people like over and over again. It's just like, you're just body blowing people until they get knocked over. Cause they're like, they have no idea what's going on. So you're just catching people off guard and they don't get a chance to like follow with you to like keep up with anything. You're just like smacking them over and over again.
that's like that Robin Williams influence. You mentioned him earlier. I mean, he is, there's no room to breathe in watching a Robin Williams set, but also every single thing that comes out of his mouth is hilarious. And you're basically belly laughing for an hour and a half or whatever, however long it is. And so if you're not running that many tags, that many funny words and sounds on a just like a machine gun sort of pace, if you're not doing that, you have to come back, and you have to let there be some silence, and you have to be comfortable with that, so that when the punchline hits, it actually hits, so you got your timing down.
Oh yeah, that's the thing, is like within my first year of doing stand-up, like, and this is like the one thing that walking out of that first year, I was super proud of myself for doing it, is I really started to kind of try and develop a cadence, like, for myself, as far as like how I tell my jokes. Like, this is the speed that I go through shit, and this is how I like find the natural rhythm of the shit that I write. It has like a very specific type of balance and rhythm and beat to it. So it's like, once, all it took was like one person at an open mic telling me to like play with my levels, as far as, you know, not delivering everything at the same level of volume. And, you know, also somebody basically saying like the same thing as far as silence goes. It's like, don't be afraid of pausing. The second that you use a pause, not as like you taking a mental thought, but you give the audience the time to process what you're saying, and you can just let silence be its own punchline. Then I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right. I'm going to fuck with this, and I'm going to try and play with this aspect of it.
Yeah.
And then it just made me go like a whole nother route. Cause like, there's shit that I'll do on stage where I'll do an act out without saying a word in it. I'll do an act out, and that act out by itself without any like words to it is a punchline.
Mm-hmm. I have a joke about smoking weed and how it affects me differently than other people. For me, it just gives me a bad case of the just stand there's. And then it's always like, how long do I just stand there after I say that? Right. Cause that's that's a part of the punchline, is just standing there and not making any noise, letting the audience feel like, oh, maybe he's high right now. And I never know. Should I let that go on like almost uncomfortably long? Does it get funnier if I do it longer, or is just a couple seconds to make the point enough? And it seems kind of different with every audience. I've done it. I've never gone like a ridiculous amount of time. Like, it's probably 10 seconds, which feels like a long time when I'm up there doing it. But I feel like if I went 20 or 30 seconds, it would just, I don't know if that would make it any better or worse.
That's one of those things that I feel like you could just do that, sit in that silence for however long, and then just come right out of that immediately with another joke that doesn't even address the silence. Like, you just sit in the silence until the laughs start building, and then you just come out and you're like, oh yeah, fucking, you know, whatever.
Like it never happened.
Yeah, you just take a fucking off ramp on it super quick, and you just bang the e-brake. And you're just going down with that silence, and then you just pull the e-brake and go the other direction, and people are like, oh shit, all right. And I think that like in itself is funny, like visually, of just standing there, letting that tension build, and people start laughing at that shit, and then you just come out of it like nothing happened. You're like, oh, yep. Next joke.
Oh man, I think we could talk comedy all night. We do have 3 things to get to though. And so let's try to do that. And maybe we'll continue talking comedy through the guise of 3 things. So thing 1, as I mentioned to you, something, I don't know, something deep, meaningful, thoughtful, whatever's on your mind that might hit people, whatever's tugging at your heartstrings. You got anything like that? Did you bring anything to the table, or do you want me to lead on this one?
Well, so, I mean, we were talking about all that parenting stuff up top. You know, this is like as corny as it is. So coming from somebody who is a step parent, and who like, I didn't necessarily have like the greatest like relationship with my dad as a kid growing up. When I watched the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie with Yondu, where he says like, I'm not your dad, but I'm your father, or whatever it is.
Yep.
is like that right there hit me is like the biggest thing that in my adult life, like gearing up for being a step parent, just hearing that like I don't have to be your dad to be your father is like, oh yeah, that to me in that moment I was like, hell yeah, this is exactly what I needed to hear. Because a couple days ago I was in my feelings about the fact that I was like, no matter what, I'm still always only just going to be a stepdad. And like I was talking to so my girlfriend's mom, I was talking to her about it, and she was like, dude, you're just as much a real father to him as anybody else. She was like, don't ever question that. So, you know, that right there is like, I don't have to be your dad to be your father. That to me is like, that's some deep shit.
It is, man. And the phrase just a stepdad, I mean, if you're doing a half-assed job of being a stepdad, then maybe you can say I'm just a stepdad. But if you're killing it, and it sounds like you are, you're not
Dude, we
just
made
a stepdad.
cupcakes earlier.
Hell yeah.
Dude,
Sprinkles?
I'm killing it. Yeah, 100%. He helped me make the batter, and then we baked them, and then I let him decorate them by himself. So he was super hype.
Nice. And are there any left, or did you already eat them all?
Oh no, we had two of my buddies came over for dinner, so we shared the cupcakes, but there's still plenty left.
Oh, nice. Yeah, man. So I have a question for you. I was thinking about names as I was thinking about thing one. And is Nick or Nicholas Deez your actual name, or is that a stage name or what?
So, all right. So the story behind, so my real last name is DeLorenzo. So I moved from Hampton Roads to Richmond in 2005. And I think somewhere around like 2000, maybe like 2006 at the absolute latest. When MySpace was a thing, my name on MySpace was Nick Deez Nuts. So it just said
Okay.
DeezNut with a Z. And that was my name on MySpace forever. And it got to the point where like the more people I met, the more people I knew, like people through school, people through doing music and shit like that, that became my nickname. Is everybody just called me Nick Deez or just called me Deez, whatever, and it just stuck. So it's been fucking 15 years, coming up on 16 years, and I ran with it. So funny story is when I first started doing stand-up, the first month maybe that I did stand-up, I went up as Nick DeLorenzo, but I got real self-conscious about it because people like my whole life have messed up my last name all through school. So I was like, you know what, fucking, I'm gonna just make it easy for everybody and I'll just go by Nick Deez. Because I also felt more comfortable as Nick Deez on stage than I do as like, oh, this is Nick DeLorenzo. I feel like, as corny as it sounds, I feel like Nick Deez is like my alter ego. Like that's the dude that can go on stage and just be fun, have fun, and do whatever, and then come home and I'm just the normal dude.
Dude, I have the words written down here next to my notes. I was going to ask you about your name. I was going to talk a little bit about my nickname of JR and how it has taken on an alter ego. I have the words alter ego written down here. I was going to ask if that was true for you. So that's
1,000%.
Oh yeah, it's kind of awesome. The only weirdness of that for me, my name JR is a name I picked for myself in my job. I'm at a call center, so I don't want my name to be confused with another person's name. So there was an Adam and an Alan. So I chose a phone name, and everybody at Crutchfield has phone names, and I just picked one that was easy to say, easy to spell, easy to remember. There's a pop culture reference. I went with JR. And I've been JR at work ever since. And when I started doing comedy, I'm like, do I want to be Adam Stoffel or do I want to be JR? And I didn't really know if I wanted to be JR Stoffel or what. So I just gone with JR all the way around. And it's kind of cool because I like JR is my, to the world, that's who I am. But to people that know me, family, all that, JR is not a thing for them at all.
They're probably like, who the fuck is this guy?
No, and they hate it. Like they don't like my nickname, my alter ego, whereas I kind of like it. Like if everybody would just call me JR, I'd be quite happy with that by now. But
Yeah, at this point, it's because how long have you been using that nickname?
since 1994. 94, 96. So
Yeah,
20,
see, yours
24
is like
years.
it's long ingrained. Like at this point,
Yeah.
you're like, I've been using it anytime. Like I feel like once you break that decade barrier, you're like, this is definitely not going away. This is my nickname. I guarantee you, I'll be like a fucking 80-year-old man, and whatever friends I have at the time will still call me Deez because I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm gonna stick with that.
Nice.
Like I can't wait till like I'm an old fucking grandpa and they're like Papa Deez. Like
Papa Deez.
That's my shit. That's my shit right there, 100%. That's like what I'm because dude, I'll be fucking 80-year-old man covered in tattoos from head to foot, and I don't want to be fucking Nick DeLorenzo. I still want to be old man Deez, just fucking old and chilled out.
That's awesome. So that'll wrap up thing one. We'll go to break here with a drum solo, and we'll come back with thing two here in just a second.
Fuck yeah.
All right, we're back. We're back, and we're going to roll into thing two, which can be whatever we want it to be. Usually it has something to do with music, pop culture, TV shows, books, whatever's moving us right now. Nick Deez, what is moving you today, sir?
Dude, man. Have you watched Kobra Kai yet?
I am about halfway through season 2. So,
dude,
yes, I'm into it. Yes.
That is what is moving me right now. That's my dude. Like as a kid, that was why I got into like martial arts was the fucking Karate Kid movies. Cobra Kai 100% has renewed my love for wanting to whoop somebody's ass. It's so good. It's so good in the nicest way possible. I'm 31 years old and I 100% am starting up jiu-jitsu classes next month. So like come October, I'm about to be Nick Deez. I'm going to be in a gi fucking choking people out.
I love that they are humanizing Johnny in this show. The fact that
brilliant.
He's the reason to watch the show. He's amazing. And the fact that, I have no idea what that guy's done since the Karate Kid movies and Cobra Kai. I have no idea what he was in between, but whatever I don't know, maybe he just took acting classes or something because he now is, he's mesmerizing on screen. He's hilarious and he is so perfect. The way that they've written that role, I just love that guy.
Dude, that's my thing is like, it's such a great character arc. It's such a great, like the way that they've built that character out. It's insane to me because you really get to see a whole nother world as far as like you get to see the flip side of the coin from where the movies were. You see something completely different. Yeah. And dude, it's great. I love it. Also, he was in Hot Tub Time Machine, and he was also in How I Met Your Mother. Before
see, I never watched How I Met Your Mother. I'm familiar with it, but I never really watched it. Hot Tub Time Machine was underrated and hilarious, but how did I miss the fact that he was in that movie? It's
a great movie.
Was it obvious that it was him from Karate Kid, or was he just happened to be in the movie?
See, that's the part that I'm not sure. I just remember hearing him talk about it. Like he did an interview and he was talking about Hot Tub Time Machine. So like after I saw that, or heard it, I was just like, I don't know who I'm not sure who he was. Oh, okay. Now I know who he is. You know the part where they're in the bar in Hot Tub Time Machine and Lou makes the bet with the guy with the swoopy hair about them making the winning the field goal kick or whatever, and he's like, oh, if I win, your wife, your girlfriend or whatever has to blow me, but if we lose, Craig Robinson's character has to blow him. The guy that he makes the bet with, that's like, all right, you're on. That's William Zabka.
That's Johnny Lawrence.
The dude in the bar is Johnny
That's
Lawrence. That's who it is. That's the guy in the scene. That's who Johnny Lawrence is. This guy, right?
I'm good.
Right there.
Whoa.
Which I never once would have at
that's
all.
Why.
I never would have even put the two together that's who that was. I've seen that movie probably like 100 times, and I've never once even remotely close to thought, hey, is that the guy from fucking Karate Kid?
Yeah. That's a perfect segue into what I was going to talk about for thing two, which is, for one, I don't typically watch like movies and TV shows more than once. I mean, it has to be pretty special for me to do that. For example, Pulp Fiction, I can watch that anytime, day or night, like no problem.
That's a good one. Quentin Tarantino's movies for me. Yeah. So as you can tell by all this shit behind me, I am a huge pop culture weirdo. I love, so I grew up, I was an only child growing up. So I love movies. I love, you know what I mean? I love it all. Like movies, pop culture, all that shit. Like that's a huge part of my life. And like any Quentin Tarantino movie for me, they all have such high replay value or rewatch value. I can watch pretty much any of his movies. I could watch them multiple times in a week, which that's also like a really weird OCD that I have, is like, I will put on probably like, depending on what movie it is, I can watch the same movies multiple times within a week. Like majority of the time at night, if I'm going to sleep, I'll put on like Addams Family or like whatever random movie, and I'll put it on multiple times in a week. Also, just because with having a kid, I try not to put on anything crazy that like if he were to walk in the middle of the night, he's fucking not walking into Uma Thurman fucking dying from a drug overdose. Yeah. So he doesn't get scared or anything crazy.
I have a granddaughter now, and my daughter was over with my granddaughter, and we were watching. She hadn't seen it yet. The newest Quentin Tarantino, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh, that's a good one.
And my granddaughter, she's 2 years old, and so watching this movie, everything they're saying is just flying over her head. It's not a concern really that she's hearing anything she's hearing in that movie. She's not picking up the language, the meanings, nothing. Right until we get towards the end, and I'm like, you know what? There's a part coming up here that we're going to want to make sure she's not looking at the screen when the crazy shit at the end happens. So,
I was gonna say, which part? You talking about at the part at the very end at the house?
I did not want my granddaughter to have a opinion of dogs simply based on that final scene, as well as all the other gruesome
that part
shit.
Is dope.
That's the best part. It's like. You watch it when you watch that movie multiple times, you're just watching the whole movie, just knowing where this is going. And you're like, oh God, I can't wait.
What's crazy is I watched that movie multiple times, and every time they get to Spawn Ranch, the part where he goes in, where fucking Brad Pitt goes into that little hut, like into the little house in the back, when he goes in there and fucking walks past Dakota Fanning and goes fucking to wake up the old dude from Hateful Eight. Dude, holy shit. Every time I see that part, every time it gets close to that part, my fucking hands start to sweat. Even though I've seen it already, I get so anxious because I'm like, oh shit, it's about to go down. It's going to be, oh my God, this is bad. Every time, dude, without fail, every time I watch it, I get so anxious. Even though I know exactly what's going to happen because I've seen it already. But without fail, it's like this weird innate like click in my head, which is like dope. Like that's such a good, to me, like, I wish there was more movies like that, where like you sit on the edge of your seat the whole movie. Like that's how I felt when I watched Uncut Gems. Is the whole movie, I was just like, holy shit. I was so anxious the whole fucking movie that by the time the end came, I was devastated. I was like, what the fuck just happened? I was like, this is insane. But I talked to so many people about that movie, and they're like, I want my 2 hours back. The ending of that movie, I was fucking angry, and I'm like, yeah, but it was a complete 180 rug pull out. Like, you never would have fucking seen that coming. Yeah. The whole way through the scene leading up to it, I was like, oh my God, this is the fucking swan song. This is redemption. This is beautiful. They're going to kiss on the mouth. He's going to be so excited. Everyone's happy and they all live this wonderful story. And then I was like, holy shit, you guys are assholes. This is not what was supposed to happen. Dude, it's insane. It was like my emotions got fucking punched right in the nuts. I felt so bad after that. I was like, oh my God.
It's so good. I'm gonna have to go watch it again now. Just like somebody earlier today, I was playing music with my band. It was at band practice. Somebody mentioned Leonard Skinner. I'm like, God damn it! Now I have to listen to Leonard Skinner the entire way home, and tonight and tomorrow while I'm working. I haven't listened to Leonard Skinner in a while, but that's my approach to music and like movies and TV shows. Other than the exceptions, like Quentin Tarantino movies are the exception. I haven't seen most movies more than once. But however, songs that I like, oh my God, I'll listen to them 1,000 times. And so it's a very different approach to these different sort of types of media, is that if it's good, I will watch it or listen to it over and over again. But even a great movie, I'm probably not interested in it a second or third time. It's got to be exceptional.
Oh yeah. Like that's my thing is I love movies. I'm a major cinephile, and I'm the same way with music. Is like there's albums that I know for a fact I can listen to top to bottom, and I can just let them play on repeat without getting bored. Like if I'm driving, depending on what the album is, I'll let it play through, and I won't catch that it's started over, because to me, I'm like, the album's so good that I don't ever like mentally cue in like, oh shit, I need to change to a different record. I need to put on something different.
I love that. I used to jam Blood Sugar Sex Magic by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. When it came out, it was all I listened to until I knew every word to every song. Like that's how many times I can obsess over something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you said Skinner, and now in my head, I'm like, I kind of want to watch fucking Devil's Rejects, because the whole scene with Freebird at the end of the movie, I'm like, that's such a good scene cinematically. I'm like, that's so well shot.
I don't even know what that is. Devil's Rejects? What's that?
Devil's Rejects? So Rob Zombie, the musician, made a bunch of movies. And there's like a trilogy. So there's House of a Thousand Corpses, Devil's Rejects, and Three from Hell. Those are the three like connected to one another. But he also did a remake and a sequel to the Halloween movies. And then there's like a cartoon called El Super Beasto that he has that I haven't seen. But then he's got 31 and then Lords of Salem. Those two they're not the greatest. 31 is kind of like The Purge mixed with Saw in like a weird.
See, that's a genre I just can't bite into with the whole horror thing. It's never done anything for me. It's like, to me, it's like professional wrestling. I just can't get into it.
Well, I mean, I don't think either of us can get into professional wrestling at this point. I don't think we have a very good career path ahead of us for pro wrestling. Dude, I used to love wrestling as a kid.
Oh, you and me would make a great team. You'd be my son. I'd be your dad.
Yeah. I could be Deez JR. And they'd be like, it's Deez Jr. I'm like, no, it's just Deez JR.
No, yeah, I have to constantly tell people it's not Junior, it's JR. All right, cool. That's funny. We need to, we're already getting silly now. We've gone on too long probably, and it's time to wrap this up with thing number 3, something stupid, silly, whatever. If you're working on a bit, I mean, anything you want it to be. What do you got for me?
Ooh, am I working on a bit? All right. So, I have a joke that I started writing recently. So it goes into it. So coming out of the pop culture thing. So this is kind of relevant. So like I said, I love movies. I'm a huge pop culture guy. I have a joke that I've been working on since quarantine about Pee Wee Herman. And the last part of that joke, I talk about how, so the joke is basically like he got arrested in 1991 for masturbating in an adult movie theater. And then the joke is basically like, you know, I feel like that's where you're supposed to do that. Like, you know, if you're not going into that movie theater and jerking off, you're what's wrong with the world. But then I go down this list after that where I'm like, he got arrested for that in 1991. I'm like, I'm just glad he did it there and not at like a family-friendly movie theater. Because it's like, you guys know what movies were killing it in 1991? My Girl, Beauty and the Beast, and Boys in the Hood. It's like, if you can masturbate while watching any of those movies, you are my hero. That's like the highest grossing movie in 1991 was Terminator 2. Terminator 2 made $500 million in 1991, which just goes to show if you can masturbate while watching that movie, that is definitely a judgment day. So that's the Pee Wee Herman joke. And I wrote a whole nother chunk this week that goes after the Terminator thing that I'm really excited to start working on. But it's like, I rewatched the Terminator movies recently, and like I love those movies, but I love how crazy their concept of time travel is. It's like we could send a robot back in time covered in synthetic human skin, but we can't figure out a way to send him back with clothes on. It's like, that's so crazy to me, because it's like no matter what happens, like he just shows up naked every time. No matter what, they just always show up naked, which is like also really funny because every time they show up, no one's ever like, hey, dude, your dick is out. They're just like, you need my clothes? That's weird. Like, that's the furthest thing that I would be concerned about. I wouldn't care about you needing my clothes. I would just be like, dude, why are you naked in the first place? But it's like,
do you think when they're sending him back, they put clothes on him going, man, you're going to look so good when you get back to 1991. And then he shows up and he thinks he's fully dressed, but he's not.
Well, so the next part of the joke
burns up and whatever that go ahead.
Well, so the next part of the joke is like, it's funny to me that they figured that out, because that means like one of two things. Like, the first is that they just tried to send a bunch of people back in time with clothes on, and they just kept catching on fire. So at a certain point, they were just like, all right, yeah, we should probably try it without the clothes. Like, maybe that'll work. And then it's like, or the other part, which I like to think is probably what happened, is like somebody was just like, are you sure I have to go back without clothes on? It's like, oh yeah, 100%. Like, this is the only way to do this. He's like, you sure I don't have to wear pants? He's like, yep, that's totally the best way to do time travel. Like, we can't send you back with clothes on. That otherwise it's not going to work. But like, the last part of the last part of the joke is like how funny it is to me that like John Connor sent back his best friend to send his mom a message, and the first thing he does, or to give his mom a message. So it's like he sent his best friend back in time to give his mom a message, and the first thing he does is give her the D, which is like, that's a terrible friend move. Like, that is the worst friend move ever. But it's also like, that's like a pro dad move. Like, that is so, like, that's such big dad energy, like 100%. Because like the funny part to that is like, once you realize that's your dad, you have no choice but to maintain that friendship no matter what. From the second you meet that dude, he could be the worst friend in the history of friends ever, but you just have to be like, well, that's just dad. Like, I guess I kind of got to suck it up. Like, I can't, all right, fuck it. But yeah, so that's pretty much like, that's where I'm going with that joke, is like, it's an add-on.
That's good. I want to hear that bit. Yeah, I want to hear the bit with the new stuff on it, because I heard you do it at the XR Park mic last week. And I love the idea that we're still talking about Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman getting caught jerking off in the movie theater.
Oh yeah,
the fact that we start there is pretty fantastic. You were 2 when that happened. I was 17 when that happened.
Oh yeah,
and I remember thinking when I was 17, like, that exact thought that is basically your joke. Like, wait, you're not supposed to jerk off when you go to a dirty movie?
When I was a kid,
what the hell are you supposed to do? Why would you go if you're not going to do that?
What's funny is like, so since I started doing stand-up, I've had these premises or ideas in my head that I'm like, one day when I'm good enough at writing a joke, this will be a funny joke. Like I have an idea and I'm like, keep that idea somewhere in your head and don't lose it. The Pee Wee Herman thing is like something that I had wanted to work on for a while. And like I'd heard another comic do a Pee Wee Herman joke, and where he went with it was completely different from where I had ever even thought of going with mine. So I was just like, perfect. Okay. That's the only Pee Wee Herman joke I've ever heard that is done well, that's out there. I was like, I'm going to go the complete opposite direction with mine, and I'm going to fucking go this route with it. But like my whole childhood, ever since I found out that that's what happened to Pee Wee Herman, is like I've always just had that thought of like, I thought that's where you were supposed to do that. Like when my parents told me that he got arrested for masturbating in an adult theater, I was like, you're not. So wait, so what's the point of the theater then? Because like that's worse to me, to like be the person that goes to that theater just to watch the movie. That's like, that's disgusting.
I mean, what are you supposed to do at the end of the movie?
Control.
Yeah.
It's just like a bunch of horny ass dudes walking out with the world's worst case of blue balls. Like, well,
right.
All right. Guess I'm going to go stick my dick in this stale popcorn now. Like, what the fuck? That's so weird.
Yeah. It pisses me off that I did not think of that. And when I heard you do it on stage, I'm like, God damn it. Why didn't I think of that? Because that's exactly what I have been thinking about that issue for ever since it happened. And a person that was 2 when it happened gets to do that joke, and now I don't, even though I've been thinking that. Why didn't I make that a joke? And so that's, believe it or not, what you've just done is inspire me more to really just like write stuff down and try it. Like stuff I've been thinking about and sort of going deep into the well. I've got a lot of years on this earth, and some crazy stuff has happened that I've never talked about on stage. And to figure out that kind of stuff and things that have happened, it's just I hope I can get something out of that.
Well, see, what's funny is like, so that joke came out from me, like really just, like I said, it was a thought that I'd had for as long as I can remember. And again, so like I'm a huge pop culture nut. I have a joke that like I told you before, is like I'm one of my first jokes was about me basically stealing Batman's life. And I thought like that was where I was like, this is something funny. Like this is where my mind goes, is like making references to cartoons, movies, comic books, whatever. Like one of my best jokes that I have is, you've probably heard me do it, is the Sylvester Stallone joke, where it's like, I talk about how before he did all the movies that, you know, all his like action films, he was an adult film star. And then I list off like what his movies would be called as adult films. And like, I do an act out at the end. And that's like hands down, honestly, like one of my favorite jokes that I've like ever written. That's like one of those moments where from the first time I did that joke on stage, it hit, and I never really had to change a whole lot to it to make it like strong. And that was one of those moments where like when I wrote that joke, I was like, okay, maybe I can construct a joke at a level that's beyond just an open mic comic. And like the more that I've done that joke, now I went, okay, well, I had the Pee Wee Herman joke, and like I was at an open mic about like probably like a month ago, and realized I had done the Pee Wee Herman joke. And then I went, all right, well, wait a minute, I can do the Stallone joke right after the Pee Wee Herman joke, and they go side by side.
Yeah.
And now that I've added on to the Pee Wee Herman joke, adding in the whole Terminator chunk, now I'm like, well, this is a 5-minute chunk just on these movies.
Yep.
And it's just on just that, like just a pop culture chunk by itself. And it's cool because now I'm like, all right, well, if I have 5 minutes, I can just go up and just do those 3 jokes. And that's a 5-minute set. And I go, all right, cool. And it's a strong 5.
That's awesome, dude. I would love to keep talking, but my battery on my laptop is dying fast. So we're going to have to wrap this show up. Thank you, dude. Thank you so much for doing this.
Dude, of course. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Where can people find you, and what podcasts do you have that people should go listen to as well?
So I have so you can find me on social media anywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is at Nick Deez Comedy. So Deez Comedy. That's where all my stuff is. I have all my videos and whatnot on really on my YouTube and on my Instagram. But other than that, I have 2 podcasts that I do. If you guys like comedy at all, I have a podcast called Comedy Build-Ups and Breakdowns, where me and another comic basically do what you and I did for the first like 30 minutes of the show, is where we talk about how you got into comedy, the highs and lows, and just kind of, so it starts off with us breaking down a bit. And then I have a podcast with my buddy Addison Hall called Broken Boys Podcast, and you can check that out. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. Seriously, my laptop is dying. I gotta go.
Oh yeah, dude. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it, man. It's been a blast.
Thanks, Nick. I'll check you later, buddy.
Hell yeah.
All right. That was my interview with Nick Deez. Thank you so much for listening. It ended kind of abruptly there because my laptop battery was dying fast. So just in case you missed it, check out Nick Deez's 2 podcasts, the Broken Boys podcast and Comedy Build-Ups and Breakdowns. Find them wherever great podcasts are found. My thanks goes out to Nick Deez for being on the show. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.